So in this video, we're going to put together this dashboard that contains snowfall data for Mammoth Mountain Ski Resort, which is one of my wife and I's favorite places to go during the wintertime here in California. So, and this year has been particularly bad snowfall year. So we were kind of wondering, how bad is it really this year compared to other years? So I put together this dashboard with some charts that will show us exactly how bad it is. But anyways, so this is just a dashboard with some charts, and this file contains basically some pivot tables and pivot charts that feed into this dashboard here. And it also uses Power Query. So we're going to take a look at this add-in called Power Query from Microsoft that's available for Excel 2010 and 2013, and see how Power Query works and how it can help us reshape our data and bring it in to feed our pivot tables. So this is basically the file that we're going to end up with, but we're going to start with a blank file. So I just have a blank file here with a blank sheet in it. And the first thing we need is our data. So fortunately, Mammoth Mountain has a great site here where they show all of their snowfall data, and down at the bottom of this page they have their snow history. So from every year back from 1969 all the way up till the present, they have the snowfall history for each year by month. So this is really cool, and we can use this for our charts and dashboards. So the first thing we need to do is bring it into Excel. So I'm just going to copy it. And when you're copying data from the web, if you start selecting it, it's in a nice table like this. I just selected those first few rows, and then I'm going to scroll down to the bottom, hold the Shift key on the keyboard, and then select basically the very last cell down here in the table. And I'll just hit Control-C to copy, and then I'm going to open Excel and bring it back into Excel. Let me show the ribbon here. So in Excel to paste, I'm going to use this paste option here. It's kind of paste values basically. So I'll just click that, and that'll bring it into Excel in a nice looking table format. Now this data is not in a format that I'd like it for a pivot table, because we're going to create some pivot tables from this data, but actually the months should be down one column, and then we should have all the snowfall values. This is snowfall in inches per month basically, and so those should also be in a column. So I'll flip back over to my previous file so you can see what that should look like. So basically I have it here where we have the year in one column, the months listed down another column, and then the snowfall for each month in a third column. That's how I want my data to look. And Power Query has a nice feature that allows us to what they call unpivot this data, or put it in that format very quickly. So I'm going to show you how to use Power Query for that. The first thing we want to do is make this an Excel table. So we can do that by just selecting any cell inside our data range here, going to the Insert tab on the ribbon, and then pressing the Table button. You can also use the keyboard shortcut Control-T. That'll bring up this window. We want to say my table has headers, and click OK. So that just turns it into an Excel table. It's currently named Table 1. You could rename that if you want. So now that we have it in a table, we're going to go to the Power Query tab in the ribbon here. So once you install Power Query, and it's a free download for Excel 2010 and 2013, and once you install it, you'll see this Power Query tab appear up here in the ribbon, and then all these buttons with different cool options. Power Query is really powerful. It's one of my favorite new tools in Excel. I think you'll really like it, and it helps automate a lot of processes, especially with data reshaping like this. So let me show you how it works. So the first thing we're going to do is load a query from a table. So I'm just going to select this From Table button, because I already have my table selected down here. So I'll select From Table. That'll load up the Power Query editor. So it's basically just loaded a preview of our table here in the Power Query editor, and then it offers us all these tools up here that we can use to reshape the data. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove this total column, because we don't need that when we're creating pivot tables. We're going to have all the months, and we'll be able to sum up all the months to get our total. So we don't need the total. So I'm just going to right click on the total column and select remove, and that'll remove that column. It's not actually removing it from the data source or the data table that's in our workbook. If I just show you the workbook here, that all this data is going to remain. We're just going to make changes in this query editor and then reload a new table into our workbook based on the changes we made. So that's how that works. So the next thing I'm going to do is unpivot this data. Power Query has this really great feature called Unpivot. So I'm going to select this pre-October column. This is our first month column. And then I'm going to hold down the Shift key and select July over here, and that'll select all those columns. And then if we go to the Transform tab up here on the ribbon, there's this button called Unpivot Columns. I'm just going to click that. That's going to very quickly unpivot our data. So now you could see that just almost instantly we have our year in column 1 here. We have our attribute. This is what we unpivoted, and we're going to rename that. But this is basically our month, and then the value, which is the snowfall amount. So Power Query just did all that work for us with a click of one button. So this is what makes it really powerful. So now I want to make a few more changes to my data table here. First thing I'm going to do is rename these columns so they make a little more sense. So instead of season, I'm going to right click this, go to rename, and we're going to call this year. And then same thing with attribute. We're going to rename that to month. That makes more sense. And then value, we'll rename that to snowfall inches. So we know that's snowfall in inches. So that tells us a little bit more about it. The other thing I want to do is I want to change this year, the way this text is displayed. I don't need both years in there. I'll just use the first year. So again, Power Query allows you to transform your data with stuff like this, where you might used to have used text to columns, the text to columns tool in Excel. You can do a lot of that kind of stuff in Power Query now. So in this case, I'm just going to select the year column, and then I'm going to choose this split column button from the transform menu, and I'm going to split by a delimiter. And so that's going to bring up this options window, and this will look kind of similar to text to columns. We're going to do a custom delimiter, and it's going to be that dash. So basically I'm going to split the column by that dash there. And we'll just keep those settings and say OK. So now you'll see that that's basically split this column into two. We have what was before the dash and after the dash. And I don't need what's after the dash, so I'm just going to remove that column as well. So now we just have our year, and it's basically just showing the year in a nicer date format. And that'll look better on our charts. That's why I did that. And then we can also rename this to just call it year. The other change I want to make is I noticed when I was creating this before that the snowfall column has some text in it. The last year's basically, or the last month in this year had this little dash from the web page, and that's actually text instead of a number, and that's going to screw some things up. So we can take that out using Power Query, and it's kind of a little quirk here with Power Query, but it's a good thing to learn. So the first thing I want to do, basically I'm going to use this replace values button to replace that value. But if I try and find the value, which is just that dash, you'll see this little warning box comes up, and basically that's telling me that it's not it's not a numerical value, this dash, it's text, and so it doesn't like that. So what you have to do is first just change the data type of this column to text. So I'm going to change this to text. You see it's more formatted like text now. Now I can use the replace values, and I'm going to find a dash. We don't get that warning, and I'm just going to replace it with a 0 and then click OK. And so that's made that change, but now we want to change this back from a text type to a number, and we're going to choose this decimal number, and that'll change it back. So now it's actually formatted as a number. So that's just a little quirk with Power Query, but it's a good thing to know when you're working with text and numbers in the same column. All right, so I've got all my changes made here to my query, and it's looking pretty good. So the next thing I'm going to do is go to the Home tab here, and we're going to say Close and Load. And this Close and Load is going to basically load this new table into a new sheet in our workbook. So it's going to add a new sheet here, Sheet 2, and then you'll see over on the right we get this Queries pane, and it's showing us that it's loaded 506 rows. And here they are. So that's what Power Query's done. It's added a new sheet with a new table, and this is the table we can use as our source data for our pivot tables.